Now we're going to do my good point. And I've actually picked this one very carefully. And here's the thing, Alexi. It's slightly awkward you're here because I'm going to sort of have to big up all dents that you were in. But you'll see my point of why. Which is even though Heroic lost the final, and obviously that's something they've done a bunch in a lot of big tournaments now. They won the one where it was really close against FaZe, but they lost the major final. They lost now. They've been that close to winning lots of tournaments, right? Obviously, I've pointed out a million times when they didn't make finals runs, like all the problems of the team. Like, I don't think some of their star players are quite good enough compared to the other star players. Like, almost everyone who's the top team in the final always has like the best player or the MVP on the other team. That's an angle. Cadian, I think, is maybe slightly overrated as an AWPer. Still good. But the key thing is, the one thing I give Cadian more and more credit every month that goes by, it's a really good fucking IGL though. And the point I want to make here is, my good is that if you are a casual fan of CSGO, or just like a younger player, or you've never played at the top level, this is the team you want to watch to learn how tactics can work in your team. Because that's the thing, they don't have the G2 lineup, they don't have like fucking all-stars. Like, spoiler, at the end of this year, even if Heroic wins tournaments, I doubt they will have more than 2 people in the HLTV top 20. That's probably best case scenario as well. Like, they're not a team that's built with superstar, but I tell you why they're competitive, because fucking hell their T-side's good, and that style is so fucking you can see that these aren't all chip from spawn guys. They're clearly making like mid-round and especially late round calls. Like, they're so good at setting up and like going to the other side last second. Or you can even, the joke is, I watch their games and I can see the radar, and even I'm like, actually I can't tell where's this round going to end, actually where they're going to close, like, and because it must be like a call off like a flash here, or someone spotted someone out of an apartment. So it tells me that like the comms are fucking sick. Everyone's on the same page, by the way. As soon as they call some like rotation or mid-round, everyone fires off straight away. And like, you see, like, for example, everyone knows that Nuke's amazing. How fucking good is this team at like switching up the site and then everyone's on the site all together with all, oh, they're so good. So the thing is, like, a fan's going to go, but they lost and got beaten. But it's like, yeah, but look how they played though. And the joke is, they were almost made this 5 games by playing like this. Because what it shows you is one of the best things about Counter-Strike as a game, which is it isn't fucking football where the guy who's just better just scores 3 goals. Like, this is a sport where you can beat people who are better. It's like jiu-jitsu or something. The smaller guy can win if he just has better technique. It doesn't matter that they have all the other advantages. Like, this team not only did beat some really fucking good teams with better players, but they even when they lose, they match up so well against everyone. Because the final thing I want to say is this. I've noticed every version of this Heroic core has an amazing map pool. And I'll tell you why. It's obvious. This is another team where it's not that they're good on every map. This style just works. This style and the way they play as a team works on every map, it seems. That's why they're always in these series. So I'm just mad impressed. Like, even though they lost, I was super impressed with how they played. Thoughts, Alexi?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with the
fact. Oh, by the way,
I
forgot to say it, but that's the other team it reminded me of was your old Ents team. Because I always used to look at that lineup and go like, look, Sergey and Alan were good, but you're not fucking like Nico and Simple. Like, and you guys were beating those teams.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like, I mean, T-sides, obviously them, like, if you give them a head start, I mean, sure. Like, they had, for example, yesterday, they had like, what, 8-1 or 8-2 lead on T-side Mirage. But it's usually when I've played against them and you give them a head start, it's really hard to claw back, because of the fact that they have like a really deep strat book. Maybe it's not even the strat book, but maybe it's just the fact that you said that they're so on the same page, and that once you think you have a good read on them, they might have that one really tiny variation that suddenly they're switching it up to somewhere else, or they're doing like, let's say Inferno, they're doing the smokes on like the arch smoke and library smoke, but suddenly they're all jumping out apps. It's just like, it's really hard to claw back into the game. So I feel like if you see them struggling on the T side, it's because they're starting slow. But like, usually they have really good T sides if they start well. But the CT side, I think that is something I've like, not only in NIP, but I've also like heard other people like give credit to them, because you kind of feel like they're everywhere. It's like playing against Furia, but it's like, it's different. Like Furia, you can have them, like, you have some rounds against them which last like 15 seconds because they just push you down. But I feel like Heroic is like, they get a pick somewhere, and you played them so many times, or you watched them so many times, that you know that in 10 seconds they will make a play at the other part of the map, because one of the people who took the entry on the other side is running to the other side, and they're like throwing the utility perfectly, that you can't really abuse the other side because it's blocked by util. And then they strike at you at the other part. Like that's the style they have, I feel like. But like going back to it, I just feel like the style is unique for sure. And I feel like on ends, yes, we had a unique style. It wasn't exactly like not at all how like Heroic is playing, for example, CT sides and whatever. I just think that the fundamentals and the fact that you said about like being on the same page and the communication, I think that's what made us strong. And I feel like Heroic has really good communication. And by the way, this team on paper as well is like the dream team again, because I feel like
as in they fit all the
they
roles.
hit the jackpot with Shush, by the way. Like I feel like this guy is like he's the anchor you want. Like he's the guy you want on the side who can do anything, and I mean you can rely on him, right?
Yes.
And the rifle duo they have and whatever is just overall like a really good team on paper, and they have the ideal spots, and they all want to play those spots as well. I don't think that they have any single player in the team who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna switch all my roles to this. I feel like when they made that team, it just made sense.
With the comparison between your Ents and Heroic, I think it's more just like you're getting so much more mileage or so much more out of the parts than what you should necessarily. Because like you look at some of the players and like, yeah, Stown could be probably a world-class player on a handful of teams, but like, I mean, Shush is just like, you know, he's like the Inters of this team. You know, he's just playing all the role. He's doing all the dirty work, but he's always doing it very well. But I love what you said about how like they're kind of everywhere all at once, because I think that's also how it would feel to play against them, because they're just constantly in the mid round doing something to make sure that they're like never on the back foot. That they're always making sure they're doing something, but they're way more tempered in their aggression than say Furia. Like Heroic aren't going to actually usually end the round within 20 seconds,
exactly.
But they might end it within 50, because they're going to make like they'll do like a triple mid swing on Mirage or something like that, because they're like, okay, this one pick went our way, 5v4, but we want a little bit more info. Let's double swing from Cat and swing from Window with a flash over Con or something like that. Like, they'll just go all in on those plays, and they have that smoke towards apartments. And then that's why they kind of get beat by people that just do stuff that looks stupid. Like, I think wasn't there a round? No, maybe it was actually Yabby that did this actually, but like I remember in the grand final, someone walked through a smoke towards B apartments and just nailed him in the back, because it's like if you like test their utility all the time, they might not always be holding it because they're setting something else up. It's kind of like the way, let's say, like the way that Gambit / Cloud9 gamble on the CT side is they'll just gamble stack a bomb site, and you're just like, why the hell do you have 4 people here? But with Heroic, it's like they'll gamble push in the mid round, and they'll leave one guy by his lonesome at the other bomb site, but because he has a smoke, they're comfortable doing this little play. So yeah, Heroic are like, I mean, they're just so fun to watch because of that. Like, that's why it's just constantly entertaining Counter-Strike. And that's why when this grand final was set up between G2 and Heroic, it was like the best team CS versus a team that's playing incredible team CS, but has insane individuals on top of that. And that's why, I mean, I think that's the reductive narrative for why G2 came out on top too.
Yeah. I feel like the comparison with Furia was pretty bad, but I just wanted to make the...
You meant because they push a lot and it's early rounds.
Yeah, just the fact that like, if you think about any other team on CT side, you know the style they play.
Yes.
But I feel like Furia, Heroic, and maybe arguably Big, and the argument with Big is just the fact that they do so much calculated stuff and they work with utility a lot. Like, I'm not sure if you saw like some of the nades like Crimbo was doing on Anubis, for example, and all these things. Is like they're trying to find the smallest details, right? But those are the 3 teams when I think about CT sides. It's like you kind of they have a different style compared to everyone else. I feel like all the other teams are playing like kind of basic, but they're trying to make the fundamentals so good that it actually works, you know. But they have like a different approach, kind of.
Yes. A couple of things to quickly say there. One, I definitely agree on the Shush point. Like, the funny thing is, if you go through the names, obviously every fan's going to be like, how did Astralis not get down? And it's like, to be fair, Astralis has like Blame F, who's a very good rifler. You know, they've had some very good players. The player they missed was Shush. Yeah. That should have been, that to me, that was so obvious that was the Zipnik's replacement. That is literally the player who's going to do all the shit that old Zipniks did and be like the secret sort of like foundation of the team. Because again, also, by the way, you saw it in this tournament, still every time you're in a big game, just runs out on like Mirage and just does some 2 mental like entries. Like, oh, the site's just open. Like, that's not even supposed to be a big name player, guys. Like, again, it's just a team where they get everything. And then I definitely agree on the players aspect. If people remember back in the day, I always used to make fun of DDK, the famous colour commentator for Face It and that, because one of his main things he never shut the fuck up about, but no one was listening when he said it, is he always used to spam that phrase information play, didn't he? But what Dan was trying to explain is Dan always cared about metagame concepts, and what he understood, which is accurate, because if people don't know, he played a lot of team FPS games himself, is when you're behind and you're at an information deficit, which the CTs are at the beginning of a round, they don't know where the Ts are, right? You don't just sit there and let yourself get picked off, because eventually it actually gets harder and harder and harder and harder to know what's happening. Like, you're surrounded, or they have a flank on you, or they have something. What you do is, when you're in the middle part of the game, you want to make a play somewhere just to get more information. Like, even if you push and there's no one there, like process of elimination, right? They might be stacking over here, or they can't be a flank. Like, the Heroic's probably the best at that. They don't just sit there at like 1 minute into the round and go, which side are they going to hit? Oh, fucking hell, I hope it's not mine. They make a play somewhere and they have a sense of what you're going to do. And it's like, you, as a result as well, by the way, you can't just do like one of those massive slow setups. Like, they're going to have a fight at some point in time. They're going to make you actually do something before you can call the time. And it's not like those teams that sit there on Inferno and just wait till 40 seconds to see if you're running the site through the smoke. Like, they definitely got, I like the active style. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, I think.
But I think it's pretty underrated as well. Like, if you think about Heroic as a team, like, just the last detail about this, it's just the fact that I don't see a single player that's bad with utility. Like, I honestly, just to say, like, I didn't watch too much Yabi. I don't really... Like, I know that he has a high headshot percentage, and I feel like he's getting into good situation when he has an angle on with an AK. He's like fully confident in it. But I feel like they play so good with util. Like, I've actually watched some of their games, like downloaded their demos and whatever, and just watching the micro stuff, and I feel like their individuals are like dropping util for each other in a really fluid way, where I don't think like Kadian is doing or like who is responsible of some of their stuff.
It's like a team effort, right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's just like when they switch. So let's say you said something about like them making a switch on mid game or whatever. Like, they're running and meanwhile dropping util for the guys that make sense is to throw the util. And it's like, when you watch a lot of other teams, it's like on these moments there's a lot of situations when you might be lacking an entry flash, you might be lacking like one of the good smokes and whatever. And I feel like they do it really well on the fly. And that's also why I think it enables them to play that good, because once they do a mid-game call and they need to do these split-second decisions, I just feel like they also jiggle around with the util so well that it just makes it so much more smoother, right?
Yes.
I actually looked at the flash stats for Monacy, because I noticed in the grand finals he dropped off, and I felt like every time he was in a situation, like a lot of times he was playing against Heroic, he was getting flashed off. And I looked at basically prior to the grand finals, Monacy per round was flashed for 1.5 seconds, but against Heroic he was flashed for like 2.5 seconds per round.
That's enormous.
So it's like they are so good at making an opper just feel like their screen is white all the time. Like,
yes.
their game plans are so good, and you actually look back at a lot of the teams that they played against, and it's not like against Simple. Like, Simple had beneath a 1.0 rating.
Yep.
The game against Zywoo, it was like Zywoo's worst game of the tournament. That's also due to air quality, but that's another topic entirely. But no, but then also when he played against Dexter didn't like do that well. Like, basically when you're an opper playing against Heroic, their util is so good that it does stuff you a lot of the time.
Sure. I mean, I actually used to have that line about the old Ents team that Alexi behind. I said the reason why that team can win Counter-Strike matches is because, one, it doesn't matter how good your aim is. If you're blind, you can't shoot people. And then two, if on CT side you can make a 2v1 setup, you can be Nico. When you kill the first guy, my second guy kills you. Like, those two principles will work forever in Counter-Strike. Hence why, to bring it back, if you're a young fan who doesn't know the game, that's the team to watch. Don't try watching this G2 team or FaZe. You won't be able to do any of that shit. To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content, well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.